Howdy, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Inciting Incident. I'm your host, Tim Shields. You're in for a treat today because the topic we're going to discuss is something that actually includes everybody. Today, we're talking about a very powerful movement led by my friend, Dr. Andrea Vitz. It's called emotional sobriety. And let me tell you, when I went home for Christmas this year, I was anything but emotionally sober. And when I got back, I was like, what the hell happened? And I was just kind of gripped in this state of anxiety that was a nervous system moving into the past, meeting other nervous systems in the past in a familiar environment. There was some chaos that unfolded, but it was still fun. So we'll probably get to that at some point, but enough jibber jabber for now. Let's get into Andrea's bio. Andrea is a TEDx speaker, developer of emotional sobriety training, best-selling author of You've Never Met, How to Stop Experiencing Pain and Chaos in All of Your Relationships by Sobering Up Emotionally. Speaking, that was a terrible kind of jibber jabber of words. But anyway, she's a 20-year doctorate of chiropractic and over a decade ago was called to overcome what she deemed as emotionally in sobriety. Reaching a state of mastery over her emotional state and realizing that humans are the same in why we become emotionally unsober, she reverse engineered what she did to transform herself and began teaching her method to hundreds of leaders, individuals, teams, and youth, couples, transforming their insecurities, sabotage reactions, and discord in work, family, and romantic relationships. In addition to delivering her secrets in executive retreats and one-on-one guidance, Andrea and her partner Ted run Lifted Academy, an elite level coaching platform dedicated to integrate human mastery. Wow. That's the hardest part, always, me reading the bio. So I'm so relieved that we've gotten beyond that.
It's free. You're free now.
Yeah. So, let's go in the Wayback Machine. Who were you? Where were you? And did you have any idea who you wanted to be when you were 17?
Oh, I love time machines. Okay. When I was 17, I was probably just really obsessed with softball at the time. I know that I wanted to be a doctor. I knew that very young that I wanted to be like a hero and do the things that other people didn't want to do. So the things that were kind of like the biggest problems in the world, I just feel like I wanted to swoop in and clean them up. But then I realized like very early on, probably when I was around 18, that I didn't want to be a medical doctor just because I didn't love the idea of not having like family life. So I felt like if I wanted to get into like emergency, which is my initial pull, was I would feel like very torn between the two, home and hospital. And so I ended up going into chiropractic, realizing there was such a different vibe around causing, creating a change or a solution around the cause of a problem, rather than like, oh gosh, this is already happening to you. How do we patch it? And so just getting to a place of finding the solution for real, like pinpointing problems is my biggest purpose in life.
So you received, if I got this correct, you received your doctorate at 23.
Yeah.
You were a mother by 25 and you had all the markings of success. But when someone told you your behavior didn't match your intentions, something shifted. What was your inciting incident?
Okay, so my inciting incident is wonderful. So my husband now, who was just my early boyfriend, very early boyfriend at the time, he was the one that pointed that out to me. And if I didn't respect that man more than anyone in the world, I would have been a nightmare, I'm sure, receiving that information, because I really struggled with defensiveness and childishness back in the day. But yeah, he introduced me to myself. Like he put a mirror in front of me, as most romantic relationships will do for you if you let them. And he said, like, you are these wonderful things as like your framework, but you're not able to always demonstrate those things, especially under pressure. And so I stepped back a little bit. I listened to what he said, and I started to observe myself in a very different way. And, calling myself out on my BS, noticing where I was full of it, noticing where I was manipulative, noticing where I was lying when I didn't even have to lie. Like there was no reason to. It was just such a habit to maintain some kind of, I call it independence, but it wasn't independence. It was more dependence, and insecurity that made me do that. And so just being able to witness those things, I decided I don't like that version of me. It's not the real version of me. I really held myself to a higher standard than that, I thought. And so I started doing real work. And the problem was that every single book I read, every meditation I did, all those things, I would feel better for a moment. or for even like a couple days. But as soon as I was pressed on, or if there was any kind of chaos or any kind of conflict or any kind of confrontation, let's face it, like any kind of conversation, I would be reactive. And so I just did everything that I could to figure out why that was happening, and then forced myself to train out of it. And I had a completely different brain after that. I am still me on the inside. My core is the same. My personality is somewhat the same. I'm just much more level-headed and peaceful and way more redemptive. Like that's what I would say. I feel like I've recognized this level of humility that was really lacking. And the confidence I used to think I had was really just arrogance. And, being young, I mean, I wasn't that young. I was probably 30. But being youngish and thinking that you know better and that everybody else is wrong and your emotions are justified and your behaviors are justified, but everyone thinks that. And so I just called myself up to a different level and forced myself to do it. And that's how emotional sobriety training, or EMSO training, was developed.
I was coaching somebody yesterday for book writing, and she lost a child like 15 years ago, and she kind of said she's using writing as a process of unpacking things. So what was your process of self-examination to get outside yourself and become the observer of the person who was being this person?
Well, writing down your patterns. So I always felt like, what am I actually feeling right now? Because one of the things that I was lacking was being real. Like I didn't know what real was. I thought I was being real, but when it comes down to it, most of my answers to questions and most of my conversation pieces were around some kind of a manipulation or shifting or managing someone's perception of me based on what I thought they needed me to be. So there's this thinking for others that happens to all of us. We get very self-centered and very self-obsessed, and we think that we're good-hearted and we think that we're being of service a lot of the time. But most of the time, we're really trapped in self. And so I recognized that. I looked for what I was really feeling. I looked for what I was really thinking. I looked at for what I was really doing. And then I called myself out. I say the fastest way to self-awareness, which is the first step, by the way, is just be suspicious with yourself. The same way you would be with somebody else, do it onto yourself. So it's looking at, if you can notice where somebody else is a little bit dishonest or manipulative, or where somebody's a little bit more reactive or judgmental, just turn that inward and say, like, where am I actually the one doing those things? And you'll be shocked. Like, you'll be having a conversation with your partner and be like, I'm such an asshole right now. Like, I can't believe that I'm doing this.
I've been there. So, a lot of people, you kind of touched on people pleasing. Were you a people pleaser? Obviously, you said that. Like, where do you think that came from? Does it go all the way back to your parents, or was it pleasing your parents, or was it something inherited from them?
That's a great question. So the way that I reverse engineered kind of what I did, I call it the anatomy of emotional insobriety. And these are the parts or the components that make up who you've become today that wasn't your choice. So that also could be considered your intoxicated identity. This is the version of you that you become when you're flooded with emotion. Because we know emotions are chemicals. And we know that when we're on chemicals, especially big amounts, we get drunk and we act foolish. We do things that are kind of by our default nature. And we do learn that default nature in childhood or in some kind of period before the age of 25 when our brain's not quite fully developed. So I think for me, recognizing I had like a very strong fear of rejection, or what I would call a filter of rejection. And so that does a couple things. One is you're always avoiding rejection. So you're people pleasing, you're seeking attention from everybody. You're kind of like over the top in flirtation. You're doing those things that are very inappropriate at times, but you're not even aware of it most of the time. And then I think there's also this thing where you're always looking for where you are rejected already or in the moment. So that could be like any conversation you have with somebody, you're filtering it through. I'm being rejected right now. They aren't seeing me as special. They aren't seeing me as the chosen one. They aren't seeing me as, there's that arrogance again. And so there's this like deep wounds, like you might call them, that we have from childhood, of course. But my calling is like to help people get over that. Like you're not a child anymore and you aren't rejectable anymore. Like this is something where we really have to take leadership over those wounds and say enough. I'm not going to keep doing that. And my real reason for that was recognizing that my traumas or my conditioning, whatever you want to call it, was affecting me and therefore controlling me, because what controls how you feel controls you. So if I'm acting in these ways because I'm believing or seeing the world or seeing my relationships through these filters, then I'm teaching my daughter to do the same thing, the same way that I learned to do it. And so that was a real turning point for me, was recognizing my kid was going to think like me, feel like me, do like me, if I don't shift who I am fundamentally at my core. And I think like really it's victims. When we remain victims, we make more victims. Let's just say it loud and clear. If you are still not able to handle your emotional state, if you can't be in a meditative state, so to speak, when you're having a conversation with your partner, or when you're leading a team, or when you're writing an email, you're not an effective leader yet. And that's okay. Doesn't mean you're not great at your job. It means you're not great at handling your emotional state and getting people to trust, know, and follow you. And so I think that's the most important thing, is recognizing when we don't overcome our wounds, we make more wounds.
In other people. And
yes.
Yeah. And probably, deepen those neural tracks to reinforce those wounds. And then we're always kind of looking for the stories to make us right about whatever that wound is.
Exactly. So you could have an interaction just even with a colleague and decide that it means you're rejected. It means that they don't like you, that you're being betrayed, that you've been tricked, that you're a joke, that you're not good enough, that you're a loser. I mean, we have so many different things that we don't even realize is our window pane that we're looking through the world at, or at the world through. And so you have to know that. And when I started to see those common denominators of where I was putting my narrative on other people and what I expected that they were thinking, and then kind of shape shifting to what they needed to be, you're never in a really authentic relationship when you do that. If you can't have access to what you really are thinking and really doing and really feeling, you can't be really in a relationship. And you also keep other people in your relationship not as a part of the relationship. I remember early on my partner saying, I don't even need to be in this relationship because you've already decided what I'm thinking and feeling and doing. And I was like, oh man, like, God, that hit, like that got through.
Yeah.
I'm very aware, because this is somebody who I, basically saved my life. I had a severe spinal injury, and he just swooped in and completely shaped me into a very strong, physically strong person. And
how did you get the spinal injury?
So I was a softball player for many years and a third baseman. So I was squatting and forward for many years. And all through grad school, I was sitting and commuting and all those things. And so I think I just kind of compressed my discs in my lower spine. And then one day after I'd had my child, I took over for the Warriors chiropractor, the Oakland Warriors chiropractor at the time, Golden State. And he had a full practice. And I went from no adjusting for a period of like a couple of years because I was having a baby to full-time adjusting. And a mechanism for injury for a disc herniation is bend, twist, lift. And that's essentially what I was doing all day long in an untrained body or a detrained body. And so one day I just ruptured 3 discs in my lower spine very severely. One went through my lumbar ligament and down under the spinal canal. And so I lost a lot of the use of my left leg, and calf was completely gone. My left glute was gone. My saddle was numb. Like everything was just totally dysfunctional. And the pain down the leg was severe. So I kind of was at my wit's end. I'm like walking into my patient offices. I'm going into the rooms and I'm like dragging my leg. It was just telling people I sprained my ankle. Like, it was really a hard thing. So when I met my husband, that's how I met him. See, injuries are good sometimes. He just told me, you're going to have to get as strong as one of my elite power lifters in order to overcome this thing if you're not going to get surgery. And I'm like, well, I definitely don't want surgery. So I just started on that path, and I got as strong as humanly possible in that period of time of a couple of years. And that's essentially what I did with emotional sobriety training. I'm thinking, okay, if I can get physically stronger by finding my weakest pieces and forcing myself to do the hard exercise that I don't want to do, I'm going to get stronger. My body's going to be adaptive. And so our brains and bodies are the same way. Like you can change your brain fundamentally through reps. And so when you find your anatomy of emotional insobriety, when you find your filter you're looking at the world through, your belief systems, when you find the emotion that you're most addicted to that you make predictably. You're going to find it everywhere. You'll notice you have an emotion, the same problems in a different romantic relationship. Guess why? Because you're looking through the same filter and you have the same predictable emotion cascade that you make. You're going to find resentment. You're going to find insecurities. You're going to find anger. You're going to find embarrassment and sadness in every single relationship, depending on your unique flavor that you like the most. And now I say that jokingly, we don't actually like the emotion, right? But we do become addicted because our bodies are basically creatures of habit, and it's going to make everything in a way that you've asked it to in the past. And so if you haven't had resentment in a while, you're going to find it, right?
Yeah.
It's delicious. So you have the filter you're looking through, the emotion you're addicted to, and then the behavior that follows that emotion. We talked about that intoxicated identity. It's like you're hulking out. Who do you become when you're under the influence of fear? When you're under the influence of resentment or embarrassment? For me, it was embarrassment and sadness. Those are my two biggest. I found them everywhere, and they made me a nightmare. So what is your behavior, or what I would call your emotionally triggered behavior? And that can look like defensiveness, childishness, jealousy, which is absolutely a behavior because it has motive behind it. Looking for your judgmentalism, your dishonesty. That was a huge one. And looking for your self-centeredness. Okay. And all these things, most of us have a lot of these. I had all of them. So when you're looking at yourself, don't worry, everyone. Like I've done all the things. If you read my book that you've never met, people read it all the time. They're like, did you write this about me? And I'm like, no, I wrote it about me. We're just all the same. And so I want to invite people to don't have shame when you're looking, be excited, be curious about who you became that wasn't even your choice, and how it's been kind of deciding for you everything that you do, every decision you make, every person you date, everyone you say yes to, everyone you say no to. It's making your life something that's not consciously what you would choose. And then the last part of the anatomy is your motive. Checking your motive is the fastest way to sober yourself up in the moment. It removes the chemistry because it puts you in your prefrontal cortex, because you're asking yourself, whoa, what am I actually doing right now and why? So you can notice you're in a conversation maybe with your girlfriend or maybe with your sister or something like that. And you're recognizing you're in the middle of this emotional bubble. So you must not be acting well. You know that. So what's your behavior and why? Checking your motive is am I trying to control? Am I trying to manipulate? Am I trying to manage perception? Right? Am I trying to be right? Am I trying to force them to understand me? If you yell, let's say, at your child, ask yourself, what am I hoping to accomplish by doing this right now? Well, most of the time we're hoping to scare them so they won't do what we're upset about again. Okay. Yeah. We do in a lot of relationships. So check your motive. Oh my God, I'm just trying to appear pitiful right now so that this person will feel sorry for me, or I'm trying to get them to buy from me. And so I'm trying to be sneaky. When you recognize those things, it just completely wakes you up, and it really humbles you and makes you understand other people, because everyone has this. Every single person has this until they train it away.
Yeah. I mean, the whole time I was home for Christmas, I wasn't planning on going this direction. I want to ask you another question, but the whole time I was home for Christmas, I was completely unaware of kind of my behavior. I was so locked in to myself and everything. And it didn't really even hit me until I was flying home and I did a meditation and I just saw, who I was, and it was devastating. And I, kind of the information that came through, or the imagery, or however this information came through, it was I said something kind of terrible to my sister. And, it was I had this plan for the day, and it doesn't matter how it happened, but it got screwed up. And I said something terrible to her, and I realized in this meditation, when I was a little kid, I was the youngest by 8.5 years. So I was this toy that they just kind of played with, taunted, teased. Sometimes it was great, but I was always trying to be in that little world, but I wasn't, because there was such a huge age gap. And what I developed out of that was a very sharp tongue. And I could destroy anybody like my age with my tongue. And then in high school, I was, this like small, but, athletic prowess and everything. But I was making fun of this kind of meatheady dude. He's probably wasn't even a meathead, but he just like grabbed me and choked me out. And my friends just stood around. And I was like, that was like the first time I was like, oh my God, the world's not a safe place. But I realized that, my defense mechanism was to cut people down. And I had to become, I had to work on cutting that out. It's still there. And I just felt like I was being picked on by my sister. And I was just like, leave me alone. Let me deal with what I'm dealing with. And she just kept going. At least I experienced. She said she wasn't, but I
Yeah.
experienced that she just kept, putting the knife in the ribs. So I just said this thing because I wanted to shut her down. So, I mean, I wasn't even aware of the intoxication until much, much later. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you do in that situation? I guess you
Well,
check
that's
your
good.
motivation, right?
Yeah. Well, I think what you're describing is something I call the familiar energy crisis. And this
Yes.
is when you go back to your pre-sobriety relationships where, and by sobriety, I mean emotional sobriety, when you're absolutely adamant, I'm not going to participate in anger, in impatience, in resentment, in embarrassment, in fear. I'm not going to participate in them anymore. I'm going to transfer that into something different. And so for you, you might have had that stability going in, but as soon as you get around the people that inserted that identity into you, it's really, really challenging. And so I tell people, like, it doesn't matter how strong you are, you might still get a little bit of that pull, like a magnet, to become who they expect you to be.
Yeah.
That's the truth. It's who
Especially in
you are.
family.
It's the
Yeah.
role you play. It's like, it's little Tim. Like, that's just who he is, and we expect him to be. And if he was different, it would be weird. And I'll tell you, if you presented as a very balanced, level-headed, mature version of yourself who was like completely, non-self-obsessive, non-selfish, non-self-centered, they would be weirded out. Like, who are you? Why are you not engaging with us in the ways that we do? Not because they prefer you as the sharp sword of the tongue, but because they're used to it, and because it means something about them. If you've changed the normal, especially of a family. I always say families are like little cults,
Yeah.
like you can't leave and you have to act and believe just like we do now. Like
Yeah.
you can't get out, buddy.
I
So
like
you
that.
have to just recognize that. Yeah. And so the familiar energy crisis is a real thing, but I want you to understand you can be your highest version of yourself in those relationships when you absolutely choose it. And you're in a hyper awareness going in. I love what you said. You said something like how you didn't even realize you were in the intoxication. And that's because when we get around familiar, we just tend to get lazy.
Yeah.
And I think, oh, I'm home now. We do it with our spouses and our partners. We do it with our kids. We're like on for everyone else. And then as soon as we don't have to be on, we turn into this like self-obsessed, selfish version of ourselves, because we assume, I have unconditional love from these people. So I
Yeah.
can just finally relax and treat them like crap, even though it might not be your intention. But you also use the word devastated. You said when you recognized that you had who you had been being, you were devastated. And I teach this to leaders all the time. I'm like, what is it costing you? What's it costing you to not have command over your emotions 100% of the time? It's a lot easier than you think it is. It's way harder to not have control over your emotions as you've
Yeah.
experienced. You're flying home, you're just like feeling all this guilt or this embarrassment and this like anxiety around like, how am I gonna
Shame.
shame?
Yeah. I was like, I
Yeah.
can't believe who I was. Yeah, it was a wild. I mean, I don't think it'll ever happen again because,
Right. It humbled you.
it humbled me big time. And when I'm not that person, like if they come to visit me, I'm not that person because I'm in my environment and
Yeah.
I'm kind of in control, and
Yeah.
I'm like organizing what we're doing and stuff. But when I go home there, I'm like subject to like, can I borrow the car? And it's when I go back to there in New Jersey, it's not far from my childhood home. So really, what I really want to do is just like drive around by myself and like experience and process and like communicate, like be with my parents and stuff like that. But I did not express that up front. Like, I need a day like this, you know? In my mind, it was just like, this is what's going to happen. My niece was supposed to be there at a certain time. And then she was like late. And then I spun. I went into like spin cycle. And that was what started the whole thing. And it's pretty ridiculous when you think about it. But that is the emotional intoxication.
Doesn't it make sense that you would be most childish in that relationship?
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Sure.
Like that's how you handle those relationship quarrels, specifically because you were literally a child when you learned how to handle quarrels with them.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be the most childish with them. I often say, like, people say that you're going to treat the people that you love the most the worst. And I don't think that's actually true in totality. I think we treat the ones who love us the most the worst.
Yeah, that makes kind of sense because you take it for granted.
Take it for granted. You rest on your laurels. You can be your worst possible version with them. It doesn't take any energy. And we need to switch that. We need to switch that. We need to be like, see the people that love us the most and be reverent and hold them as sacred.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this person would do anything for me. Like, I'm going to be hyper aware around them, especially, like your partner, your siblings. Like, now I recognize too, like, there's abusive relationships that we need to separate from or have like clear boundaries. But for you kind of went in lazy. You went in thinking you didn't even describe what you needed. You kind of leaned into more of your fear around not having control or not having your freedom or being kind of held down by your siblings. So that's all that happened. And anything that looked anything like that anxiety or that frustration or the disappointment kind of raises up. And now all of a sudden you're not in control at all.
Yeah. Well, I did not have any intention going home. I was just so excited to go home. I was like 3 weeks out. I was like, I can't wait to go home. I can't wait to see everybody. And, my girlfriend or partner or whatever we're supposed to call them these days, I don't know. She would always say, like, we have to be very intentional about, what we're doing and stuff. And I was like, yeah. Of course. Sure. And then, sometime after I came back, I was just going for one of my walks and I, just put on the headphones and I don't think, and I just let information come in. And this line about intention came in, and it's that intention prevents drift. So, I going home next time or whatever, I will be very intentional. And that experience really kind of humbled me. And, that's not who I want to be. So I think intention is really an important piece of it.
So we need 3 things. We need desire to change. We need intention, and we need action. So a lot of people go like 90% of the way there with intention and they don't do anything about it. They don't actually embody the principles. Teachings and instructions and knowledge and information mean nothing unless they become a part of you and you are actually demonstrating them out loud. I love the word intention. I think of intention as like a tightrope. How aware do you need to be when you're walking on a tightrope?
Pretty aware.
Yeah. If I lose awareness right now, I could lose this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what time it is. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. If I lose my awareness and my intention right now, I could lose this relationship. What's it going to cost me? How devastated would I be if I treated this person anything other than sacred? And so that, I love that. I think it was Robert Lawler, who said, put the bridle in your own mouth.
Like the UFC guy?
No, Robert Lawler was,
yeah.
He taught sacred geometry.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. He talked about putting the bridle in your own mouth. And I loved that analogy because it's exactly what emotional sobriety training is. It's stop looking at everyone else and just make sure you're on track. Make sure you're in alignment. Make sure you are actually following the rules that you set for yourself, not the rules of your family, not the principles that your dad made you have, the ones that you actually choose. Because if you choose them, they mean something to you. We don't have a chosen identity a lot of the time, especially around familiar energy, especially in romantic relationships. I believe romantic relationships are the hardest relationship to master. Oh man. Like everyone could probably vouch for that. They're the most challenging relationship. And I think it's because, one, we get into them because of chemistry, and we have this fantasy about who they're going to be, but it's more who we think we are to them. I think we fall in love with people because they love us so much, or we think that they love us so much. And it fills in all the voids, all the gaps, all the insecurities for like 3 months. And then all of a sudden we start filtering what they do through our filter of rejection or our filter of whatever insecurity inserted there. And then we blame them for changing, or we blame them for shifting the agreement. But there really was never an out loud agreement. I think we stare into each other's eyes and we assume we're thinking the same things. We assume that we're picturing the same future together. And, like, oh, we're going to live here and we're going to have this kind of Saturday night. And you're going to say these lovely things to me every night. And you're going to kiss me like this. And you're going to, and it doesn't end up being that way, because if we can't even say out loud what we actually want and what we actually are picturing from the other person, how can they guess?
Yeah.
And so communication is important, but it's the most important part of communication is knowing what you actually want and being honest.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I was thinking about when I went into college. I was always a writing major, but I started psychology, didn't like it. Then I went to English, didn't really like writing English papers. And then I took philosophy 101, and I remember, the idea of solipsism, which is there's always this voice in your head. And I was like, there's always this voice speaking in your head. And I was like, oh my God, it was kind of, it sounds ridiculous, but the first time I ever became aware of it. And that's what made me switch to a philosophy major. Probably a big part of who I became. I'm like, who is that voice? Who am I? Where's it coming from? What are we connected to? It's a much bigger, more complicated, nuanced thing, but a lot of it, I'm sure, is coming from those core wounds of our childhood. So let's say you're in a negotiation or a meeting at work or something. Somebody triggers that core wound. I mean, most people are so reactive. I haven't been in corporate America for almost a decade, but I remember a couple meetings. How do you pull back? How do you put the bridle in the mouth at that moment?
So this is great. So a lot of my training, especially my one-on-one coaching, is I help people prepare for exact things like this. And when you prepare for it, one, you know exactly what you can avoid, so you don't see anything as offendable, right?
Yeah.
So you strengthen that muscle first. So the best option is to avoid that trigger altogether, not avoiding the situation, but making it so that you don't see things through that filter anymore. It's like you go in with a different level of confidence and composure already. Like, my poise is not going to change regardless what is said in front of me today. In fact, I'm not going to be surprised by human behavior, because we're not as smart as we think, and we're a lot more unhinged than we know. And so when you know that about other people and yourself, you stay humble and you stay out of judgment, and you want to just see the outcome or the end outcome of that meeting or that conversation with your partner or whatever it is before you even walk into it. You have to have a really strong motivation as opposed to a motive.
Yeah.
My motivation is to come out of this where everyone feels heard. We have this outcome. Everything is this. And if it's anything in between that, I'm gonna be the same. I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna be this person. That takes training. So what I teach people in the one-on-one, if they can't do that yet, I give them little magic tools that they can use in the moments of emotional overwhelm. So you're either going to catch yourself in the middle of the behavior, like with your sister. If you had heard yourself in that moment or seen her reaction and not made it about you, but thought, like, I wonder, like, what triggered her just now? Like, why is she so emotionally unhinged right now? Well, then you would have to question yourself, what just happened? what was my part in it? How can
Yeah.
I make it right? And when you're not thinking about yourself like the same way, when you're not thinking about how your day didn't go well and, all your needs haven't been met, or how, people are late and disrespecting you, or people are picking on you, when you're not thinking like that, because you're not that person, you're so present with other people. And it can
That's
sound
true.
like, oh, I'm going to be a doormat, Andrea. I don't want to be a doormat. You're not a doormat because you're not affected. So that's what I help people do is you start with the little things. It's catching your behavior in the moment. That's a really advanced place to be, or intermediate to advanced place to be. It's catching your behavior in the moment. And then actually amending it, like saying, oh my gosh, I made this mistake. I recognize I filtered this situation through this, which is very predictable. I felt this emotion. I'm settling down. I'm right here with you. Let's get a do-over. I love do-overs. In fact, one of the ways I think people handle conflict the best once they've done emotional sobriety training is if they do mess up, because we're human, we're going to eventually mess up. We're going to be tired, or we're going to be caffeinated or something, and we're going to mess up. We have the ability to say, okay, I just need a do-over. And if you have somebody in your life who's willing to let you do that, that's really valuable. But I wanted to talk to you also about one more thing. There are a lot of tools that you can use in EMSO, or emotional sobriety training. Like the magic word is a really good one. Magic word is something where you could give that to your assistant, or to your wife or girlfriend. You can give that to one of your best friends, and it has to be a word that's really unique. So something like falcon. Okay. So if I'm walking with you, Tim, we're hanging out, and I notice you getting really anxious, or like starting to talk to somebody in a rude way, I could say falcon. And for you, you understand, oh, that means I need to get above myself right now. I need to get into that intention. And so it's a little magic word. No one else knows what it means or why I say it, or even could hear it probably. But you trust me enough to be the keeper of your magic word, where you might get a little defensive with me at first because you're intoxicated. But then you'll start to observe yourself more. You'll see it for what it really is. And you're like, okay, this is my chance to take action, to actually calm myself down, recognize I'm making this about my insecurities. I'm flooded with anxiety, which is my predictable emotion. Of course, I have anxiety. I always do. And therefore, these are the behaviors that I'm actually demonstrating right now. What's my motive for doing it? It just sobers you right up. So magic word is good. I also really like the replay of trauma. And this is all going to come up in my second book, the Composure Challenge. I'm challenging all of you guys. We're all going to be super composed by the end of the year. Okay. So I challenge you. But we are looking at other people. So like let's say you're yelling at me, or you're experiencing something where you're calling me a name because you're upset about something. For me, I'm able to take myself out of that picture, and I only see you. I see somebody who's all of a sudden a very small boy who's like fighting for his life. So I call that the replay of trauma. If you're screaming at me, or if you're utilizing some kind of mechanism to like get me to stop doing something, or to control me in some way, to get me to feel something, then I know that must have happened to you or around you for you to know how to do that. Right? So I'm looking at you thinking, this is what he saw. This is what happened to him. And it puts me in such a different, compassionate place. That doesn't mean I'm a doormat. It just means I'm able to not make it about me, and I'm able to stay emotionally regulated as a leader. This is not work for everybody. This is work for people who are brave and convicted and want to be the most high-level leader they can possibly be in their home and at work. So you can see, right? You're like, God, that sounds hard, Andrea, but it's really not. It's when you reach a level of understanding around yourself and your specific anatomy that makes up your in sobriety, you see it in everyone else. And so if my behaviors feel justified in the moment, so does theirs.
Yeah.
If my partner's upset and doing something I don't like, that's just their version of what I do. We're not different. Some may think, oh, but it's more severe what he did. But does it really matter if I know the mechanism is the same and the solution is there for it?
So how do you get from, sort of Ted calling you out to, founding EMSO, emotional sobriety?
That's a great question. So I think that when I really was able to get honest with myself and then also share it with him, I had this like spiritual experience where the room turned orange and I could feel something shift in my brain. It was almost like a presence left my body, like a depossession, if you will, or an exorcism. And that sounds crazy, but that's the only way I can describe what it felt like and who I was after. I was never the same after that. Now, there may have been times where I would have been combative or a little bit defensive or, things like that, but it was nothing like it used to be. I used to be incredibly jealous. I can't even explain to you how jealous I was. I've never met anyone as jealous as I was. If you think you were more jealous than me, please email me, Andrea@liftedacademy.com. I really want to hear your story and just compare notes because I was absolutely a nightmare. And it makes sense as somebody who feared rejection so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would be biggest ETB or my biggest emotionally triggered behavior would be like, I'm going to shame you for looking at that girl. I'm going to make sure that you never do that again. And you're afraid to even talk about other girls. It was insanity. It's the only way I could describe it. And now I'm the total opposite of that. If you can go to the other side of the equation, I feel like I've made it there. But what happened for me was that desire I had to change, my intention to change, and then the action that I took to change it. I actually became the person that I was wanting to be. In the moments it mattered, in the moments that there may have been conflict, in the moments that somebody could have offended me. I was me, I wasn't offended, and I took the lead. When I started to do that training over and over and I got those great results and I had that spiritual experience, I started coaching other women. So I started bringing people in totally for free, just for research. And they would come over. My daughter was very young. She was like 6 years old at the time. And so people would come to my house at like 8:00 at night, right after I put her to bed. And I'd work with them sometimes till 3 a.m. just to get them to some kind of big shift to a place where they don't need to take years trying to sit in therapy, figure out why they feel a certain way, talk about their trauma, talk about their relationship specifics and situations. It's a waste of time. Only look at you. The individual is the only one that can heal relationships. That's it. Not your partner, not your kids, not your sister, not your boss, not your team. It's got to be you and only you. And so once I started coaching people and getting all this research developed and really kind of consolidating all my training, that's when I started writing my book. And it took me a couple years to really get it all in the way that I wanted it to. And when I finished the book, it was like 750 pages. And I knew that wasn't going to work. I didn't have you at the time, Tim. So I couldn't be like, can you cut all the fat off this? Mm-hmm. And so I just split the book in half. I'm just like, all right, this is going to be the foundations piece. And this is going to be the intermediate piece or the practicum, like where you actually start doing the training. And then this next piece, I actually had a third book that came from it just by virtue of the years of training, advanced practices. So I'm going to have 3 books total. For now. And all 3 of those are going to get you to a place of like real emotional sobriety. Because people often think like, well, Andrea, this is just emotional intelligence. Like I have a great EQ. I know what people are feeling. I know how to modify my behaviors to make people feel better. That's not what sobriety is. Emotional intelligence is knowing your triggers and being able to talk about them. Emotional sobriety is not even having triggers. Completely different person.
Yeah, it's it's regulating the self so you don't get that chemical cortisol shot in the arm.
I love that you just said that. I always call it like the IV of fear or the IV of anger. Yeah.
I was thinking more like heroin, something far more destructive, but but anyway.
Well, what's more destructive than anger and fear?
Yeah, for sure. And the chemistry that, is coursing through your biology in that moment. You started that whole thing you said about like my desire, blah, blah, blah. So the root cause was suffering. You were suffering, right?
Yeah, I think there's suffering, but that's often not enough. You have to recognize that you are causing other people suffering.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess. Yeah. Go ahead. Finish. You can finish that. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, you talk about attacking the root cause of suffering. Where does suffering actually begin?
Self.
And how dangerous is that gap between identity and behavior?
So the suffering actually begins in the beginning and is sustained because of our self-centeredness. One of the rules in emotional sobriety is the rule of suffering. And the rule of suffering is this. I'm going to get a lot of pushback for this at first, but trust me, if you hang out with me for an hour, you'll understand. When we're suffering, we are in self-centeredness, period. We're making something about us. I'm making your choice about meaning something negative about me. I'm taking what you just said and I'm turning it into what I need it to be so that I can feel that emotion that I'm addicted to making. What we see, we find. What we're looking for, we find. We're trying to see it, so we'll find it. What we hear, like we often hear what we fear, right? So you might have had a conversation with your girlfriend or somebody in the past where you're like, you said this, and they're like, I never said that. Like, no, you did. You said that I was this. It's like, I never one time said that, and I would never say that. You're hearing it this way. So a lot of people, I'll say, record your arguments.
Yeah. That's going to go over real well in the moment. Yeah. Hold on. Let me hit record here. Can you speak into this?
Yeah. Say it again. Yeah. It's interesting. If you know that you're going to sit down and have a conversation with your partner and it always ends up in a fight, hit record before the fight starts. Couple things happen. Number one, you either don't have the fight because you're being listened to. Mm-hmm. You're more intentional. Isn't that interesting? You're less lazy when the camera's rolling.
Yeah.
Why is that? Right? And so that's the first tip. The second is you start to be able to observe, go back and see, wow, you really did say that. I heard something completely different. I actually recognize how unhinged I am and how much training I need to do. It's amazing. But you're not thinking about the other person. You're thinking about what you can do differently. That's the biggest shift that we have to make as human beings. We're so offended. We're so judgmental.
Maybe play it back when you're going down the highway, so there's no way they can get out unless they really want to just open the door and roll out. But that's on them.
Hey, I've seen that happen.
Yeah,
that's on them. If you want to die on the freeway,
yeah. So, what do you think is there sort of a core 3 things that people kind of, or 5 or 7 or that people are sort of suffering from that causes emotional insobriety?
Yes. So the 3 core things I would say are just their obsession with how everything affects them. They're looking for that hit of the emotion they're addicted to. That's the biggest one. And not even realizing it. And their motive. They have motive. Yeah. Their intoxicated identity wants to survive. It wants to be right. It wants to be chosen. It wants to be validated. It's ego. It's like, stroke me,
I mean, that,
and if you're not stroking me, you're an enemy.
I mean, that seems to be, everybody does it to a certain degree, but it seems to be really amplified in like younger generations these days. They're like so easily offended, and it's like
absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe they should have grown up like Generation X, where parents just open the door and let us go. But we're also being trained by social programming and engineering through social media and apps and everything. So there is this kind of train to divide, but man, people are so easily offended. It's part of the whole woke culture thing too. It was like there's a certain element of social engineering there, but we're
definitely being trained to be offended.
Yeah,
we're being trained to look for where we can. Don't get me started on cancel culture. It is the absolute saddest thing that could happen to a human being. And I'm telling you, if you're canceling someone, you've never been humbled. You've never one time been humbled. Because if you can't put yourself in their shoes and think like, wow, everyone makes mistakes. We are all the same and we all need help sometimes. When you cancel people, there's no way for them to be redeemed. There's nowhere for them to go except down even further. And if you really want a better world, you better focus more toward redemption and reformation, than just cutting people out, especially for the little things. But I think that also the biggest blind spot people have is around metabolic disruptors. And I want to talk about that. This is my husband's work, some of his work. People don't recognize what they're doing by their own hand that's actually contributing to their emotional intoxication. And the metabolic disruptors are the things that literally disrupt your metabolism, your chemistry in your body, and they give an instruction to your body that make you dysregulated emotionally. So let's talk about that. These are things that are very celebrated in the world. They're very common. They're very ritualistic, and they're so socially accepted and promoted that when you ask people to remove them, they freak out. They're also the most addictive things.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? So, so caffeine. If you're drinking coffee, even decaf, just know that on the side of your cup, it says anxiety. It says, I'm going to have more irritability, more impatience, and more frustration, and I'm going to look for somebody to take this out on later. In fact, a lot of people, when they have coffee in the morning, even if it's just one cup, you guys, by the evening, they're having a fight with their partner. They're discontent, they're irritable, they're restless. That's it. The second one is alcohol. Alcohol causes depression. Period. It is a depressant.
End of story.
And it completely messes you up. You guys, it was even just a few years ago, I was thinking, I can still drink. No, I can't. I'm not going to do it. It actually creates big mental problems. And we just drink it like it's a powerful celebratory thing. And it's really sad that we get so stuck in that. It's also a carcinogen, guys. So it's like asbestos. You wouldn't drink asbestos. Why would you drink alcohol? So there's that. And then things like weed, believe it or not, is going to create depressive states and insecurities. So if you're prone to depression, you have to stay away from that and recognize that when you are altering yourself with things like sugar, excessive social media, that's another one, toxic relationships that you're not taking care of, those kinds of things, they affect your emotional state so much more than you even know. I've had some people just quit coffee and alcohol, and all of a sudden they get along with their partner.
Yeah.
Why is that? Right?
Yeah.
Because they're able to at least get rid of the thing they're doing by their own hand that's making the problem way worse. So it's a lot of this is just, it's not so much unawareness, because I think that once people hear it, you're aware now. It's really addiction. It's addiction to the substances. It's addiction to the escape. And it's an addiction to not taking responsibility for your own inputs. That's the most important thing.
I had this, I don't know, a couple of years back. Actually, it's probably like 7 years back. I had this long distance relationship, and we would go between Seattle and Mexico City, and every time we were separating, like going back to our lives, she would create some sort of huge chaos. And like one year I was like, okay, well, I gotta change things. And I quit alcohol, sugar, and caffeine all at once. In the first 3 days, I was like, I want to die. And my sister's like, you're going through withdrawal. The sugar was by far the hardest. But,
it's the hardest.
By week 2, I was so clear. And I just remember like going for walks around Seattle and the information that was coming in. It was like you cleared up the static for the channel. And it was, I mean, I really want to dial all that back in as I'm, just had my coffee and I'm having my tea here and all that. But it's hard
you'll
to do.
You'll also get so much energy back. Yeah, you'll get, you guys, it's just a drug addiction. Yeah. It's just a drug addiction, and you can get through it. And the problem is we create these micro withdrawals when we do that. Like we're drinking coffee, we withdraw from it a few hours later, and then we need more, and then we withdraw from it. So you're having withdrawal symptoms from alcohol, from sugar, and from caffeine all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why you want to have it again. If you just stop doing it in 3 days, like you said, on the third day, he rose again. 3 days, it'll do a lot of things. And you can completely transform your life and relationships by taking that responsibility and actually take it seriously. Don't just think of it as like, oh, well, I can have it sometimes. Just fully commit to it. You will be a different human being. And if you put emotional sobriety training on top of that, you're unstoppable.
Yeah. I mean, you co-founded Lifted Academy and you speak about human evolution. What exactly is evolving? Our biology, our identity, or our level of responsibility?
All of it. Your biology will be completely different, right? You're changing on a cellular level. Your brain is changing. I feel like my heart changed shape even. Like I feel like I'm a different person in terms of like, I feel like I look different. My eyes started getting weird, like a greener color. Like I used to have a totally different color eye. And in identity, absolutely, because you're choosing an identity for the first time in your life and you're training to do it. Remember, you're always training something. You're either training to be weak or you're training to be strong because it's all repetition based, right? And then I think that we're shifting on so many levels. What was the third one? It was
Responsibility,
great.
our
Responsibility.
level of
Yeah. I
responsibility.
mean, absolutely. So like when you think of somebody who's responsible, you think that person has this level of maturity that's rare. And maturity is so untapped. People I've worked with high level leaders, like name CEOs, 100 millionaires, have no maturity when it really comes down to it, and very little responsibility when it comes down to relationship. And so if that's true, then we know that one, success doesn't promise maturity, money doesn't promise maturity, age certainly doesn't promise maturity. So we have to choose it. And really, you choose responsibility in order to have that maturity you're looking for. And when you think of maturity, one of my dear friends who's a psychotherapist, he defines maturity as using effective strategies. So what is immaturity then? It's the use of ineffective strategies. And how many times have you caught yourself being like that fly that you judge that just bumps into the window pane over and over again? You're like, buddy, try something else. Just go this way and you're going to be free. We as human beings, so I say we're not as smart as we think. We do the same thing. We use ineffective strategies at home, we in our romantic relationships, with our parenting, with the way that we feed ourselves, what we consume. We try all these strategies that are completely ineffective and just block us. They block us from our spiritual path more than we know. And that's why I think that we're all given them, by the way, and they're so promoted. They block us from our relationships. They block us from our knowing ourself completely and being in the present moment. And so all those things, yes, identity, responsibility, that's how you evolve. When you integrate the human experience, we have 4 planes of existence: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And all of them need to be trained. There's not really training out there for the emotional state. My training is the only training I ever found. That's why I had to create it. Otherwise, I would have just taken another training. You can go to therapists, you can go to hypnotists, and all those things are effective in some way, on some level. But the majority of the people that I've talked to have had no real sustainable, life-altering results. Do you know why? Because it has to be done by your hand.
Yeah.
No one's going to do it for you. A therapist can't make you better. Even if you get results from a therapist, it's because you did what you were supposed to do. I'm not going to get you better. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do, and I'm going to coach you to get you to that new identity, to get you to the new responsibility, and to get you to the new biology. And now you have this human experience that's totally integrated, and you have this level of freedom and fulfillment that was before just not even an option. You didn't even know you were missing it, which is so sad. Because on the other side of the mountain, it's like sunshine and rainbows, and people are sitting in like this dark, dreary hell that they don't need to exist in, and they definitely don't need to bring the next generation into.
Yeah. I say something in my new book, like the untrained mind is like flypaper, bad stories and habits and, all these things stick to it. So really emotional sobriety is about, training the mind to train the emotions to, basically it's mastering your energy. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's being intentionally aware all the time. And it seems exhausting, but it's not. You're already thinking all the time, like you said, might as well have command of them.
Yeah.
And thinking about your thoughts, like they're just a radio station. And so if you're going to attach to every thought that you have, you're in trouble. And if you're not going to just let them go and be neutral about them and then command what you would like to think and what you would like to feel and who you'd like to be, it's like your emotional state, hear me on this, your emotional state dictates the quality of your life.
100%.
End of story.
Yeah.
So that's something that you're going to want command over.
Yeah. I think, I mean, we met maybe years ago through Instagram, right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, one of our mutual friends recommended you to me to write
Oh,
a
that's
forward.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we collaborated at one point, and then you've sort of known or coached a lot of my family, and then that has also, not a lot of my family, but some of them, and that has sort of spread out to various different people. And there are, I can think of 3 or 4 people who say your work is some of the most powerful work they've ever done.
wow,
Yeah.
that is really nice to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
I
you.
mean, Noelle,
Great.
my sister and I, and Greta too, my niece, like, it also gives people a toolbox of language in which to, understand and express what's happening beneath the hood when that chemistry gets
Absolutely. Yeah.
lit up and everything like that. So are you teaching any courses coming up? Are you still doing like the online courses, or are you more one-on-one these days, or?
So yeah, I do. I have an on-demand program so people can do it on their own pace. And then I do one-to-one coaching as my primary. So I want to leave your listeners with some way to, one, stay connected with me, and also a free gift, because the first step in getting emotionally sober is awareness. There's 4 A's in getting emotionally sober. There's awareness, there's acknowledgement, and there's action and application. And awareness is, if you don't know who you're actually being, then you won't know what you're weakest in, and you won't know what to train. And so this is our first step of really being honest and actually looking deeper beneath the surface, rather than saying, oh yeah, like I know that I do that sometimes. This sheet that I'm going to give you is something that will help you uncover your specific emotionally triggered behaviors. And those behaviors are your primary symptom of emotional insobriety. They're the primary symptom to me outside of the emotional state, because a lot of us are not even aware how often we're in an emotional state, but all of us can see the behaviors that we demonstrate, and people around us can see them as well. So you might hear like, God, you're so selfish, or you're so defensive, or you're so childish, or you're so judgmental. This sheet is going to help you delineate what those actually mean, and you'll be able to see yourself in each one. And again, don't have shame around this, because I had all of them. That's how I was able to write the book. So just text the number 33777, text the word leader in all caps, put in your email, and you will get a PDF of Find Your ETBs form. And it's so helpful for people. And if you have any questions, there is a link on there to connect with me, and I will give you a free call, because you are Tim's friends and now my friends.
Check it out. I mean, the only way to liberation is self-examination.
Mm-hmm.
So
And action.
and action. Yeah. We can only become aware of what we're unaware of through the process of reflection. So this is very powerful work, folks. Check it out. Where else can people find you? What's your websites?
Lifted Academy. Yeah, liftedacademy.com, and at Dr. Andrea Vitz on Instagram. I love when people find me on LinkedIn, because I'm there more. So just look me up on LinkedIn, Dr. Andrea Vitz.
Cool. Well, Andrea, thank you. It's great to see you as always.
Thanks so much for having me. I was honored that you asked, and I always love spending time with you.
Yeah, well, I've been wanting to have you on for a while, so it's good we finally got there.
Yay. Thank you.
Yeah, folks, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. It would really help. It would only take a second. I'm dealing with the Borg, with the algorithm. So, yeah. Or don't do it. Just be selfish and emotionally
unsober. Don't be emotionally unsober. Really support Tim. Also, if any of you, I'm a huge believer that everyone has a book in them. You probably feel the same way, Tim, but I'm like, if you are an expert in your field and you're not known for what you do in the way that you know you need to be, please contact Tim and get a book done with him, because it will happen faster than you can imagine. And you will have the most excellent business card, as well as help millions of people. So get that going as soon as possible. It's
Well,
in you.
that was awfully unexpected and kind. So I appreciate that. I do love what I do. So, and I love learning from, I have a very specific mission statement professionally, which is I help artists, visionaries, and global change makers articulate and amplify their ideas through the economy of words. But really, everything has to fall into that. And also, I want to learn from people. So I love learning, from people like you, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Zach Bush, all that stuff. So thanks for doing what you're doing and having the courage to confront yourself.
Hey, I want to I wish I had the courage to do it for everyone, because I would. I promise you guys, I have that much courage and faith. And courage and
It's
faith are
true.
verbs. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things we didn't even touch on, but maybe next time we'll get there. So
we'll do another one.
Yeah. Until next time, folks, I'm Tim Shields. This is the Inciting Incident. Have a good day, whatever the heck you're doing out there in this big old wild world. Bye-bye.
Stay emotionally sober.
Yes.